for the past 5 months we did our internship here at Ahosha, and we both did research on the Ria de Alvor, the estuary nearby. And I researched benthic macroinvertebrates beneath the surface of the Alvor. So I looked at the sediment species, but I won't explain more about what it is here.
Yeah, and I looked at the seagrass and how I mapped it and compared it to older data sets to hopefully, and with that I hopefully gained some insights, and I could draw some conclusions and give some recommendations. So and I will do my presentation after Sascha. So
alright, so maybe it's good to first explain what benthic macroinvertebrates are.
Excuse me, Sascha, can you speak just a little bit louder?
Yes, of course. I'm gonna have a sip of water and
you want me to be there moving your slides?
yeah, maybe that's a good idea.
You can. Don't worry.
Okay, so I'm gonna explain what benthic macroinvertebrates are. Maybe I can stand here. So benthic means bottom dwelling, so it means species that are in the sediment or burrowed under or on top of the sediment. And macroinvertebrates are species that can be seen with the eye, so you don't need a microscope to see them, and they don't have a backbone. So the goal of this research was to do field work, to collect samples on 6 different locations, and to see the sample composition, the species abundancy, and the species biodiversity. And then I made a map to visualize this, and then I can compare the species abundance and biodiversity and make a correlation with the human impacts. As you can see here, there's a lot of oyster farms, and on the other side here there is a harbor, the Alvor Harbor. So I'm gonna see if I can make a correlation between the species in the sediment and the human activities and the substrate, and give advice according to that, how to maintain the health of the estuary. Yes. So before doing fieldwork, I had to research some safety measures, guidelines, and make sure the tides were low, the weather was okay before starting it. We were wearing the wellies before starting our field work to be safe and secured.
Looking like a duck.
Yes. And these are the materials I used. I used a drain pipe, a PVC drain pipe cut in a piece to push it into the sediment, take it out, put it in a bag, a mesh bag. So I sift out all of the sediment, so I was only left with the biological material. And then I took it back to here to put it in a little tray and search out it was very tedious work to pick out anything that was alive and count it all. This took about 8 hours per sample. And that's a picture of a little crab I saw on field work. Yes, so this might not look very appealing, but if you look what's under it, it's actually very pretty and very diverse environment. There's annelids, so a lot of different worms, mollusks. There on the left top is a little hermit crab. There's arthropods, and if you click on the video.
Oh, which one is the video?
The bottom left one. You can see.
Sneak preview.
Yeah. Don't look. What have I done? Wait, I can.
Yeah, you better come and operate.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Oh yeah, you can see it swimming. It was a nice. Yeah, I got a little bit too emotionally attached. But yeah, there's so much life underneath that you never see. So it was a special research.
Okay. Next.
Yes.
Let's see if I press the red.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so these were some of the results of the study. If I go over here, this is some bar charts. Here you can see the different samples. You can't see the exact sample names, but well, this shows sample 3, which is near the harbor, has a very low abundance in species. And if you go here to sample 3, it consisted mostly of mollusks, which are mostly the tiny Paringia ulvae, the tiny little shells. So they were very dominant. Most likely because it could be human influence, but it could also be that the sediment was very muddy and they prefer the mud. And if you look at sample 6, which is very different from the rest, sample 6 is this one, that one. And it shows a very high species diversity, but that's not necessarily a good thing, because it showed very low abundance, and it mostly consisted of worms. They're opportunistic worms, so they're very tolerant to pollution. So this means that if there's a lot of nutrients, they bloom. So there's a large community. So this doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. So those are the two maps. You can see there's a very big difference between the locations, which is very interesting. It could be sample 6 because it's close to the oyster farming, and it could release a lot of nutrients. So yeah, if you continue. Yeah, so the harbor, there was less biodiversity and less species abundancy. And near the oyster farm, there were a lot of annelids that were tolerant. So, as I said, this shell was very abundant near the harbor. And sample 6 had a lot of worms and arthropods, which are arthropods, are little swimming creatures. So the conclusion, it's hard to define an exact conclusion because I only took 6 samples, and for a more complete overview I would have to take a lot more during the different seasons as well. But it might be just a combination of the substrate, so if it was sandy or muddy, and it might have an influence of the harbor and the oyster farming. So my recommendations is to, for future studies, to look at the grain size, so you can see exactly the type of sediment, because now I just did it with a feeling technique, and do a water quality assessment in those specific locations near the harbor and near the oyster farm. And right now there's no management plan in place of the area, so my advice would be, I know they've been wanting it for years, but my advice would be to put one in place so you can monitor those locations and do more samples and during different seasons. So, yeah. So, how can you guys help? The first step is to reduce the pollution. I hope everyone, doesn't pour oil, paint, or chemicals down the drain, because it's very bad and it could end up in the estuary. Reduce plastic use, so reduce the overall plastic waste by using reusable water bottles and stuff like that. And join Avosha's, one of Avosha's beach cleanups.
Well done, well done. Get the sheet going on.
But there's of course many beach cleanups all over the world, and there's tons you can just join. It's a fun activity, healthy to walk. It's very nice. The second is respect the habitats. If you go to the Alvor estuary, stay on the boardwalks. They made very nice boardwalks so you can not disturb the habitat. And follow responsible fishing and shellfish harvesting guides if you do like fishing. Do not disturb the wildlife. So there's do not disturb birds in the area as well, because it's a food chain and it all has, it's all connected to each other. So, and the third one, to support water quality improvements, use eco-friendly products. There is sunscreen with, I'm not gonna pronounce these names, chemicals, that are harmful for the water, so and for all marine life. So be careful if you buy a sunscreen that it doesn't contain these two chemicals, and opt for biodegradable soaps and stuff like that. And you can support sustainable regulation. By buying, fish you already know it comes from. If you, big thank you.